happens in Hollywood when you say no to your employer who is a big studio like Disney? Well, usually you're silenced or you're fired.
This is personal.
And I believe that is what has happened to Victoria Alonso, who was the head of physical productions at Marvel for almost 20 years. This week, news came out that Bob Iger fired Victoria for a clear breach of her employment contract. And Victoria is not going silently.
You're fired.
That's not up to you.
Because she has hired powerhouse Patty Glaser of Glaser Wild to represent her. Now, it's unclear if there is a lawsuit filed, but Patty Glaser has stated that Victoria will tell her story on one form or the other, and she's basically implying that they're ready to go to court. Now, as an attorney in Hollywood, I've worked at big studios like Disney, so I have some insight as to what is happening behind the scenes. Now, I will say I do not represent Victoria or Disney, and these opinions are just my own. I'm not making any legal conclusions or giving any legal advice. But as a woman executive who has been silenced in Hollywood, I applaud Victoria for not going quietly.
We can do better. I know we can.
Before we go into why I think she is able to even sue Disney, because remember, she's probably bound under a very high-level executive employment contract. So one might ask, how is it that she can sue Disney? Because she's probably bound by confidentiality. She's probably bound by an arbitration clause. So why is it that she's able to hire an attorney? Before we go into that, let's talk about the facts surrounding her firing. Disney has stated that Victoria has been fired from Marvel because she was doing moonlighting work, right, on her movie Argentina 1985 that went to a competitor, right? It was an Amazon project. It was nominated for an Oscar, and there was some dispute and, animosity about the fact that when Victoria walked the red carpet at the Oscars, she walked as a producer on the film and not as an executive for Marvel/Disney. But her attorney, Patty Glaser, says this is ridiculous. She states, the idea that Victoria was fired over a handful of press interviews relating to a personal passion project about human rights and democracy that was nominated for an Oscar and which she got Disney's blessing to work on is absolutely ridiculous. Victoria, a gay Latina who had the courage to criticize Disney, was silenced.
Stop being silent.
Glaser's statement continued, referring to Alonso's criticism over former Disney chief executive Bob Chapek's weak response to Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay education law. Alonso has been vocal on human rights and diversity issues. In April 2022, when accepting an award from GLAAD in LA, Alonso spoke about a lengthy conversation she had with the former CEO about Disney's response to Florida's anti-LGBT law. So I ask you again, Mr. Chapek, please respect. If we're selling family, take a stand against all of these crazy, outdated laws, she said at the event. Take a stand for family.
Take a stand for the family.
Glaser said Alonso was terminated when she refused to do something she believed was reprehensible without giving details as to the specifics. So since this news has broken, there have been further information that have come out shining a light as to what that decision was that Victoria refused to do. So apparently in Ant-Man Quantumania, in one of the shop windows, there was a rainbow with the word Pride on it. And the bosses at Marvel wanted Victoria to blur that out for their Kuwait release because Kuwait has anti-LGBT laws, and Victoria refused. So the Marvel bosses outsourced that edit and made it anyway.
That's why we made this.
It's important to remember that Victoria Alonso has been known as Kevin Feige's right-hand person for almost 2 decades. And there are very few executives in Hollywood who are a woman of color and who's also gay. And she has been a strong proponent of LGBT rights and is very outspoken about her position in wanting to create a more diverse Marvel universe as well as a diverse workplace. And it's very surprising to me that Disney has fired her because they have to know that they're opening themselves up to a lawsuit. Now, they probably are assuming that they are protected by her employment contract. But remember, as I talked about in my Try Guys video a few months ago, which I will link down below, in California, Governor Newsom passed a law in 2021 called SB 331, which expanded the protection of employees' sexual assault and sexual discrimination to include discrimination and harassment of other protected classes.
Slow down a little bit. There's a few people in the room that don't understand. Not me, I get it.
So California SB 331 is an expansion on the previous laws that were passed in light of the Me Too movement. SB 331 is called Silenced No More. It protects beyond just sexual assault and sexual harassment and sexual discrimination. It actually protects other protected classes such as race and gender. And what Victoria is able to do, and again, this is just an educated guess because I have not seen her employment agreement, but in order to pierce the confidentiality provision in her contract, she has to basically state that she was discriminated against based on her race or gender or sexual orientation. And it's interesting that Disney is opening itself up in this way and that it is taking the position that Victoria breached her contract. I think they're implying the non-compete provision that's in her contract that states that she cannot work for another company. But this seems like a bit of a stretch because that film released back in September of last year. It released at the Venice Film Festival. It was nominated for an Oscar. This has been something that's going on for a long time. So for Disney to say that they're firing her because of that seems a little unlikely. Was it because of the edit that they wanted her to do on Ant-Man? Potentially, but I'm guessing that there's going to be more to this than just that because she would probably have to claim a history of some type of discrimination in order to pierce the confidentiality provision. And she'll probably use SB 331 to be able to talk about what has happened to her during her employment at Disney. What do I think will happen? One of two things will happen. One, she will settle, which I think is very likely. Remember, Disney and big studios do not like their dirty laundry aired in public. They settled Scarlett Johansson out of her lawsuit, and technically she had an arbitration provision as well, and they were still afraid that she was going to bring a claim. And I think here, Victoria could probably very well sue them in court, and they do not want that to happen because punitive damages could be in the tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars. This is somebody who is one of the highest executives at Disney. She probably, I would hazard to guess, makes millions of dollars a year, plus there are bonuses and stocks and other incentives that she could be entitled to. So this could very well be a 7 or 8 figure settlement. There's a part of me who is really proud of her for speaking up and not going silent. I think her attorney, Patty Glazer, has implied that Victoria is not afraid to speak out against a company who is trying to silence her. So I'll keep you guys updated. I think there will be new updates as we go on. And I am really focused on making videos and talking about stories where there's a David in the story, and here that's Victoria, and fighting a Goliath, which is Disney. I have been somebody who has been silenced in Hollywood, and one day I will tell that story because I was in a protected class when that happened. And so I can tell my story, but I'm not quite ready yet because I am still happy working in Hollywood. My current employer is amazing to me. So one day, maybe when I write my book. So this is Tyler, the Hollywood attorney. If you found my video to be of value or you learned something, please consider subscribing and helping my new channel. It really does help me and it informs the YouTube algorithm. If you didn't catch my last video about how Lucasfilms is being sued by the same law firm, by the way, Glazer Wild, on the show The Acolyte, when it wrongfully terminated its producer, Catherine McCarthy. Make sure to catch it there. Remember, we were born perfect and we forget, and we sometimes forget that we're more powerful than we think. So remember your power and don't go silent. Bye.